As far as we're going to get into now, where I think the future of things are going to go, I'll go in reverse order, so I'll say Batman first. I think that the way they should go is they've got to go more comic booky. I'm not talking, Joel Schumacher or even Tim Burton. Not even close to the comic books in terms of Tim Burton. But I think you need to go possibly to where Arkham Asylum and Arkham City video games went. I think that's the perfect balance of being realistic and gritty looking enough, but at the same time still having a more comic book sensibility and letting some of the realism things lapse. Because I think if you try and play Nolan at his own game, you're going to lose, because those movies are so iconic now and so good that you cannot beat Christopher Nolan at his own game. And even if you did, people will always compare them to Nolan movies, whereas if you have a Batman, especially if you're doing Justice League, that is more of a DC universe, more of a Bruce Timm animated series, or Arkham Asylum Paul Dini Batman, I think that will make it so that people won't. They'll also compare it, but they won't be like, okay, so there was this realistic version of Batman, this realistic version of Batman, and we just did one. So I think it needs to be different enough. And I think that, especially with the Justice League movie on the horizon, that's the way to go about it. In terms of how I would bring in Robin, if you don't want to actually do Robin, and again, if you're going to do more of a comic book sensibility, I mean, those who have played Arkham City know that you can do Robin, looking dark and badass and stuff, just mute the colours and a hood and a staff, and, you can make the kid look pretty good. But if you don't want to obviously get past the whole child endangerment thing and stuff like that, and still give it a kind of a real world sensibility, even if you are going to have more kind of out there villains and stuff like that, I think the best way, and I think this could have worked even especially in the Nolan trilogy, I think this could have worked, is you have Bruce take in Dick Grayson as this orphan. Whether you want to do the whole circus thing, I'm not sure, but similar backstory, and he raises him, and you maybe in a montage way or something like that, if you're going to do it throughout a movie, 10 years pass, and basically he has been his adoptive son for 10 years, and then by the time he gets to 18 years old, 19 years old, that's where maybe if you want to do Robin, he becomes Robin, and if you don't want to do Robin, you can skip all the way to Nightwing, and there you go, you have your dark, more realistic character without having to do Robin. But you have the character relationship and the backstory and the intricacies of the Dick Batman relationship without having to do, in some people's mind, the gay Robin character. And you could go straight to Nightwing if you wanted to. That's just my opinion, but whether other people would go for that, but I think that's the way to go for it. I think people went for it in Batman Forever. I think that was the best way to do it, but the only thing that was missing was the father-son relationship, and I think you could get that by just having him raise Dick throughout the years, but not have him be, a childhood psychic. At the end of the day, this is a Batman that has to go soul to soul as Superman, so it has to be more realistic, and you can do... not necessarily go to Mr. Freeze straight away, considering what that last movie we did with him, but you could certainly do a Poison Ivy, or a Black Mask, or even a more supernatural version of Ra's al Ghul, or something like that. The Riddler, people have been chomping at the bit for the Riddler, so maybe do that one. People want that again, do a more John Glover Riddler as opposed to a Frank Gorshin and Jim Carrey Riddler, and show people that character can be taken seriously. You can have some real intellectuals come in and write the riddles for him. I think he could. I think the future's bright, and I'm generally against reboots. In general, that's when they're remaking films from the 80s, it just gets on my nerves because it's only 30 years ago. But with superheroes, and this is something I don't think some film people get, is that it can be done. I think it's the only genre that lends itself to reboots and remakes and blah 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 blah, because there are so many different versions of these characters in the comics that have gone on for so many years that you can do them in so many different ways and so many iterations and stuff like that. So if you have the money, you can just make the movies a live action, big budget, big release, more mainstream version of the comics, where here's this guy's take on Batman, and this guy, and this guy's version of this story and this character and this villain. I think it's a way to go about it, and it's certainly a way that Marvel have gone, and if one want to mimic that, then why not go for it? But the main thing I have to say for the next Batman movie is no origin story. Batman Begins is perfect, you cannot beat it, don't do it. have him be an established guy, have all of his rogues gallery pretty much already familiar to him, have it basically be the start of the animated series, have it be the start of, really where we jumped in the comics in a lot of ways, in most post-Crisis and things like that when they reboot, just have it so that, he's already met the Joker and the Riddler and all these guys, and they're already in Arkham City, they're already in Arkham Asylum, and then it sets you up, you can do a movie that's right from Batman in his prime, which is, again, going back to my problem with Dark Knight Rises, that's what we were robbed of. We were robbed of Batman in his prime, other than Dark Knight. So you can do a movie of him in his prime, and then you can open up to do a Harley Quinn movie, because the Joker's already established, and have Joker be in the background, more so, obviously he'll be a main character, but having me in the background more so he won't be as compared to a Heath Ledger or stuff like that, so the movie's more about Harley Quinn, and you can do movies that can be told with a more established Batman, as opposed to a Batman starting out, which is what we got, and then a Batman at the end, is what we got in the last movie. Marvel movies, where they're going, they're doing good. I got no comment on that whatsoever. As far as Spider-Man goes, I think the next one will have to be the Goblin, or at least building up to the Goblin. Gwen Stacy, I think, has to have a neck snapped. I think it's a perfect message to Peter, considering the fact he's going to ignore her father's message about leave her out of this and all this. I think it's a perfect message to have that end, and that is what makes Green Goblin his true, arch nemesis by him doing that. And then you bring in a complete antithesis, Mary Jane, instead of, Gwen Stacy with red hair, as it was in the Sam Raimi movies, actually have a proper, feisty Mary Jane. And you can do that for the third movie and things like that, but he'll be timid to get into a relationship with her, or timid to release his secret because of what happened to Gwen Stacy, and it'll be a good character evolution for him, I think. But hopefully that movie happens, and I want to see more of it. As I said, I want to see a movie that's just as good in story as it is in character for that one. As far as the movies that I haven't talked about, the X-Men, I'm a big X-Men guy. There's a lot of you who are subscribed to me for my thoughts on X-Men stuff. I've obviously seen the news regarding Days of Future Past. They're doing it, and dear God, either they watched it or they had the same idea. Apparently they're doing my 80s idea, and I could not be more happy about that. Apparently the present day stuff is going to be set in the 80s, so you can do more like 80s versions of the costumes, maybe have Mohawk Storm and things like that. And then in the future, which is the stuff that I'm really excited about, they're finally going to do the Sentinels, and they're going to have both cast together. So you can have Fassbender and McAvoy in the 80s time period, like older versions of themselves there, and then you can have McKellen and Stewart in the future with Wolverine and stuff like that. And I think it's the perfect opportunity to finally give the fans what they've asked for. Give them the all-star team that we have yet to get. We've gone close, we've had different iterations of different all-star teams. Give us a team of like Cyclops, Wolverine, Gambit, Rogue, Beast, Colossus, have them all together. Have Magneto with them, have all the X-Men. You can even, with it being such an expansive thing, with all the characters, you could have, and this time, you could have loads more. You could have all these different new characters and expansive characters that have never appeared in the film continuity, and actually have all the extras there be characters, so you can say, hey, look in the background, there's Pixie, and there's Dust, and all this stuff. So that you can do that, as opposed to, hey, look, there's a bunch of guys jumping off a bridge for Magneto, who apparently just have all generic powers, and they've been made up for the movie. But yeah, I'm really happy about that. The return of... I was sad to lose Matthew Vaughn, but if there's anybody who can take over, it's Bryan Singer, because he's the other one that the X-Men movies that we loved. But apparently the script is being wrote by the same guy who did X-Men 3, so we'll see. But it could be the best X-Men movie ever, and hopefully it is. Right then, so that's me out for this. That was my thoughts on pretty much all the movies of the year, where they're going and stuff like that. Possibly do more in-depth ones in the future. Again, look to this channel, I'll be re-uploading stuff as I said, and doing new stuff as it comes and when I get a chance to do it. So with that said, see you later guys, and leave your comments down below, and I'll read and respond to any ones that I can.